Welcome to the GovComms podcast, bringing you the latest insights and innovations from experts and thought leaders around the globe in government communication. Now, here is your host, David Pembroke.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome once again to GovComms, the podcast that examines the practice of content communication in government and the public sector. My name's David Pembroke. Today we're stepping back to 2016 to a conversation I had with a very smart and interesting person who I met at Content Marketing World in Cleveland. His name's Martin Schipany, who was the head of city communications for the City of Vienna's press and information services. Martin started working for the City of Vienna as a press officer before becoming an editor in the press and information services branch, eventually rising to the head of the city communications function. He'd also been head press officer for a political party in the Vienna State Parliament. One of the reasons that I reached out to Martin is because he had completed his Executive Masters in International Media Innovation Management, which is really important because his thesis was on the necessary criteria, instruments and processes that are needed to implement a municipality's content marketing strategy. There is lots of valuable insight in this conversation. I hope you enjoy it. Let's go back now to my conversation with Martin Schipany. Martin, just about you, a little bit of personal stuff to start with. You began your career or your studies in political science. How was it that you transferred from political science across to communications?
Well, basically, I was always interested in communications, and especially during my study, I also started to focus on kind of communication approaches, not only in political parties, but also in municipalities. And at the end, I had the chance to combine this knowledge with the practical work at the City of Vienna when I started as a press officer for the Executive City Councillor for Urban Development, Traffic and Transport.
Okay, so you went straight from uni, straight into the City of Vienna.
Yes, there was just a short intermission in a planning bureau, but I think after a half year, I got the chance to work for the City of Vienna, and I was very happy about it.
And when you look back now onto that time when you joined the City of Vienna and to where you are now, when you look back, what do you look back on and what sort of captures your attention from that time when you first began as a press officer at the City of Vienna? And maybe describe what are some of those changes that you've seen?
Well, I found it was a very, very useful experience because I could gather a lot of insights in all the different, or from very, very different angles on the municipality and how the municipality works. It was very important to see how the political decision-making process works. It was a very important time during my time as a press officer, but also afterwards as a press officer for the caucus I was working for. And the changes I've seen were primarily connected to the kind we're working with new media channels. So when I started working at the City of Vienna, internet was already important, but we hadn't this clear focus on mobile technology. This is something that is a very disruptive technology. It changed a lot of in our mind. So we try to optimize our media products since then to this kind of technology to get our information, our services on smartphones. This was probably one of the most important changes.
Okay, now we'll come back to that because I think as we dive a little bit deeper into your day-to-day experiences, I think there'll be a lot of insights there that you'll be able to share with our audience and things that they'll be able to take away and apply in their day-to-day basis. But we first connected when you gave me a call and we had a conversation as it related to your study for the thesis that you were doing into that, you know, what were the necessary criteria, instruments and processes to implement a municipality's content marketing strategy. Now, Just describe to me your journey towards content marketing. When did you discover it, and when did you realise that it was going to be a great system for helping to tell the story of municipal government?
Yeah. Well, as you know, the term content marketing emerged during the first decade of the millennium, especially in the English-speaking market. In the German-speaking market, it arrived definitely later. I catched up the phrase first in 2013, 2014 during a visit to the content marketing agency in Berlin. And at this time, I thought, okay, this could be a very interesting approach. It could be very useful also for our daily work at the Press and Information Services, because what we have seen so far is that the traditional media face a very, very, very intense crisis, and that we should think about alternatives as municipal communicators about how we can reach our target groups without relying on this middleman. So how can we cut out this middleman? So this was the time back in 2014 when I thought, okay, how can we use this approach in our department? And at this time, I started to dive in a little bit deeper into what content marketing is, what it should be, how are the typical criteria shaped, and also to compare them with our system. And it was the starting point for my master thesis.
Yeah, okay. And in that master's thesis, what surprised you?
Sorry, come again?
When you started studying, this notion of the application of the content marketing system, what actually surprised you that you weren't wholly aware of when you got started?
Well, I was really surprised by that. By defining content marketing according to some criteria, I found altogether 13 criteria that are typical for content marketing. For example, owned media, that every piece of content should have a call to action, that you should be consistent over time, that you focus clearly on your customers' needs, and so on. And what I was really surprised by is that our Press and Information, our department, fulfills 10 out of these 13 criteria, but I wouldn't go so far to say that we already use content marketing, because there is one important thing missing, and that's especially in the field of consistent communicating this one story over all our media channels. This is something that happens especially at the intersection between the political level and the municipal level, and there we have definitely to build a lot of more awareness than in the past, and also to get the PR officers of the political officers in our boat, and to show them, okay, here are other alternatives. Mainly the workload of our PR officers in the political offices is to talk to journalists, to talk to traditional media, but that content marketing provides alternatives in communicating with your target groups and delivering the information they really need. This is something where we have definitely to build a lot of more awareness than in the past.
So how are you going with that job? Because I think that's an eternal lament. Even today, I was in a presentation with a large Australian government agency, and when I finished the presentation, that was the first question that was asked: is how do you get the attention of the political media officers to understand that there is more to life than speaking to the media? How have you gone about solving that problem?
Well, we started since I finished my master thesis on I would say on 3 levels to get them with us. We started on a strategic level and tried, with the help of a content marketing agency, to define on a strategic level what our narrative should be in terms of content marketing criteria. So we created the so-called citizen journey. Citizen journey is comparable to the customer journey as we know it from marketing or also content marketing, so that you know in which situation your customer needs, which kind of information that really helps him to satisfy his needs. And we thought, okay, this should be also a journey our customers or all our citizens should take, so that we now try to work on, for example, when you want a passport or want your application for a kindergarten, that we ask ourselves, okay, in which situation do our citizens need which kind of content, so that it's going to be helpful for them. And with this citizen journey, we can identify also the point of sales, the touch points with the municipality, and so also the possible channels, so we can deliver them the content they really need. And to work on this strategy on an operative level, this is the time when we now get in the political offices and the PR offices. So, for example, when we do something for a new product we want to launch, a magazine in the economy field for small and medium enterprises, this is going to be in the next weeks a very intense workshop, also with the political office, so that we can work together on what are the needs of their target groups, what do they need from the City of Vienna, how can we deliver it, how can the content be shaped so that it is really, really helpful. And this is the way how we want to get them on board.
Okay, and how are you going with that so far? Have you been able to convince them or start to get them to understand that perhaps a larger investment in content marketing is appropriate?
Well, I don't think that's such a it's only a thing of the investment in terms of budget, because what we already have is are very, very powerful communication channels. So we definitely already have the designed budget for owned media. The thing is just that we combine it with this very specific approach of content marketing, not only to think sender-oriented in terms of what do we want to tell our customers, but to think, okay, what is the need of our customers? This very customer-focused approach in communication is the decisive thing, not so much to talk about sender-oriented messages. So the thing here is to combine this approach with our media channels on the one hand, and so far it worked really well. The signals are from every side very positive. They're very interested in these things because they also see it can't be the future just only to talk to journalists, talk to traditional media. They have another interest than we have. We want to reach our citizens. We want to convince them about our efficiency, about our work, and traditional media, they want to maximize their profits. It's a fundamentally other issue and a fundamentally other goal they have. So the thing is that we have to make ourselves, in the long run, more or less independent. And that's the thing.
What about in the area of advertising spending? Because another area of criticism, or another area that sort of retards the growth of content marketing, is the perceived need to spend money on traditional advertising, be it television advertising, radio advertising, print advertising. Are you in Vienna seeing the same sort of focus, or in Europe are you still seeing that same reliance on advertising spending?
Well, I think there is a shift in the balance between owned media budgets and advertisement budgets. I do really think for the future that both will exist, because content marketing or owned media are a very, very good way to build up long-term relationships, to build up subscribers, loyal customers on the one hand. But from time to time, it will be necessary to get definitely a high awareness focused on one point, and therefore advertisement is a very useful thing. So I think we will see in the future a stronger combination between content marketing tools on the one hand, and on the other hand campaigns with the support of classic advertisement in the TV or in the print sector. But what I can see is that there is a shift away from the traditional advertisement markets, not only in Austria. 2 weeks ago, a very, very well-known publishing house announced that they will focus more on content marketing, and that they want to be the leader in the segment in Austria. So there you can see there's a change process going on. Also in the German-speaking market in Germany, C3 Code Creative and Content is probably the biggest content marketing agency in Germany, and they bought recently an agency in London. So they are trying to expanding their work and their field of expertise. So what we can see is, on the one hand, definitely a lot of more investments in the field of owned media in content marketing related issues on the one hand, but advertisement will still play a role.
Now, in your thesis, you did use the City of Vienna as a case study. What recommendations did you make to the City of Vienna to improve their content marketing strategy?
Well, as I've mentioned it before, one recommendation was definitely that we need another narrative for the strategic level. So this kind of citizen journey that we have to focus on clearly what the needs of our citizens are in a specific situation. This is something that we've worked on for a few weeks, and we're already now in the phase of presenting it to the decision makers and stakeholders in the municipality, and this thing is going very well. Another thing is, and another recommendation is that we strongly recommended to develop a documentation strategy, because we are producing a lot of content, we are producing a lot of good content on various media channels, print, digital, and so on. But the thing is, with the documentation strategy, it's possible to enhance the traceability of content aggregation and creation processes, so that we can, based on the documentation strategy, optimize the learnings and the findings out of our content production. And another thing is that we are now trying to identify niche markets where we as a City of Vienna can use our expert status and build new audiences. So niche markets, the traditional media do not focus on, because it's not important enough for them. But for example, in the field of small and medium enterprises, it could be a very, very useful thing to produce such a magazine or such a media product for us as a city, because there we could focus very clearly on what are the supports, what is the supportive role of the City of Vienna in this field, and how can we be a service provider for these enterprises in our city.
How difficult have you found it trying to harmonise, across all areas of the City of Vienna, this notion of the citizen journey, given that there's an experience from, it might be economic development, it could be sport and recreation, it could be health. There are so many different areas that require different approaches, different needs, different people who are interested. How have you gone about trying to grip up that very diverse audience groups into a sort of coherent approach?
Well, that's definitely the toughest thing, because you don't have only a lot to do with different specialized fields, for example, sports, economics, and so on. But you have also to do with very different types of persons in these fields. So some of them get really quick and fast to say, yeah, that's a brilliant idea. Let's make this a thing. Let's make this citizen journey, so that we have a good overview about, okay, what are the needs and how can we be a service provider for these needs. On the one hand, on the other hand, the problem is because time is always limited, and to get them so far to say, yeah, please invest a bit of your time to do this strategic work, which is, in my opinion, definitely necessary. It's probably the hardest thing to say. Okay, invest a specific time amount of your time budget to do this work with us, because on the long run it will pay off. We will see that, and this is the nice thing about content marketing. You can make definitely every piece of content measurable. It's a hard word for me as a non-native. And you will see, okay, this content works or this content doesn't work. And on the long run, we will see that also the political offices and also the CEO level in the municipality, they will benefit from this work and from this time amount they have invested just once a time.
Yeah, so your view is that as the content marketing program start to produce the dividends, the measurable dividends, so that people can see the results, that you will start to get more engagement and more uptake from multiple areas of the City of Vienna?
Definitely, it's always this term of return on investment, but I think that's the tipping point where we can convince them that content marketing initiatives, if you want to call it content marketing, or maybe with another term, the problem is at the moment that there is no universally accepted definition. Although your definition is a very, very good one, and I used it also for my master's thesis. But the thing is to illustrate how the process works, to illustrate the benefits and the advantages of this whole process, and then I think it would be a lot easier to convince especially internal stakeholders in the municipality, in the municipal PR, that this kind of communication strategy is definitely a future-oriented communication strategy.
One of your other recommendations, which I think was of interest to me in particular, was this notion of locating the public relations, media relations, content marketing capability much closer to the leadership of the organisation. Can you describe why you decided that was a necessary step in order to have the City of Vienna adopt an approach to content marketing?
Well, that was definitely one of my recommendations, but we didn't make it so far internally. No, I think we are in a very good position as a department within the municipality, because we are the only one expert department that deals with all the questions around communication, and we have a lot of tasks around consulting, issue management, coordination, internal communication, so a lot of outstanding tasks that the other departments don't have. But the thing here is that the communication department should normally be as close as possible to the chief executive officer, to the top management level, just because there are so many questions related to fundamentally strategic issues in content marketing. So why are we doing this? Or why are we serving these target groups? And these are questions that only the top management level could answer. And that's the reason why I recommended the Department for Communication should be as close as possible to this top management level. But as I've said it before, it's not the decisive thing for us as present information service, because when we have a close look at the history and then the development and the history of our department, we have very, very many informal ways to steer and to play a role as advisor to get the answers on these questions. So why are we focusing on this, or why are we communicating in this way, and these things? And therefore, the positioning in our case is not the decisive thing.
Okay. So you had a win with in and around the citizen journey and having people to understand that strategic level narrative and understanding and satisfying the needs of citizens, and then crafting content to meet those needs. And obviously, I'm sure there is distribution elements there as well as measurement and evaluation. You didn't have as much success in terms of getting, the content marketing function more closely physically located, I suppose, next to the CEO. But what were some of the other recommendations that have been accepted?
Well, for example, one recommendation that has been accepted was that we have to avoid content silos. We have many meetings within the City of Vienna. One recommendation was definitely a closer coordination between the political level and the content production level. And that was already before I did the thesis, but it's just such an important part in this whole content marketing structure that you have one core team, one editorial core team that has an overview about the whole content production that's going on at the city. And we've done it 2 years ago with the so-called Stadtredaktion, which is the editorial core team in our city. It's in permanent contact with the political office. We have a clear overview about the web pages we produce. We have an overview about the planned advertising campaigns. We have a weekly meeting with the press offices. And one very important thing by doing content marketing as a municipality is that you have this kind of permeability between these content sectors, and that they don't only work on their own.
How far, or how would you rate your ability to be able to integrate content marketing into your approach? How far away, or how far along are you on the journey?
Well, in terms of percent, I would say that we are at maybe 80-85%.
Okay. Wow.
So that we could call it content marketing. I think the biggest challenges we have to face now are on a strategic level on the one hand, so that we will be able to distribute one notion, one idea, one communication idea through all our channels at the same moment, consistently over time. This is definitely one main challenge for the near future. And on the other level, the process of the findings and learnings, so the evaluation process, so that we can permanently evaluate our content. This is something that has a lot to do with technical stuff, with content management systems, with monitoring tools, and there we are working on with our IT department, with our online department, to set up a new content management system for the city, so that it would be a lot easier than now to evaluate the content that's being produced on the one hand. On the other hand, also to make a closer connection between external and internal communication, so that we all have in the city the same content management system and can work in one environment. And this is something that has a lot to do with technical stuff, but this is definitely the second challenge we have to face.
Yeah, and how is that going for you? Because that's obviously a vexed issue, complicated issue with security, with privacy, with other requirements, other needs. It's generally quite a complex task to be able to bring digital ICT and content together. So what advice do you have for people to be able to try to, marry up the content with the technology stack that's required to deliver those experiences that you need for citizens?
Well, one advice is definitely that you need a lot of tolerance in this process, that you need to focus as a team on this one single goal, that you don't lose your mind in this process. No, honestly, it has a lot to do with coordination between security and communication issues. So especially working together with the IT department and with the IT staff, normally in answering questions about, okay, how secure, how safe is this technology, how can we use it? And on the other hand, from a communication perspective, normally ask other questions, not the security questions. You ask, okay, what is the user experience? What kind of design we need so that it's smoothly, that we can deliver it in a convenient way. So these are fundamentally different issues normally. And the thing is that you set up a coordination process over time, so that you can share your different understanding of this system and build a consensus over time. We are already now in a good way. So we will launch the first pilot phase in April to see the first content products, the first platforms based on this new CMS. But the process we went through was long. So I think 2 years ago was the starting point. And it has also a lot to do with budget, because this technical stuff is always very expensive. And you need a lot of external contractors to set up and install these programs and the software. So we were in the lucky situation that there was this clear goal, this clear task from our CEO level to say, yeah, okay, we need this kind of system. And also our chief information officer was a very important part in this process in terms of being what's the term? A catalyzation or catalyst? It's just
catalyst for change.
A catalyst for change, just to encourage our team to work very fast and focused in this whole process.
You've been listening to the GovComms podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to rate and subscribe to stay up to date with our latest episodes.